I am running errands today, but I wanted to touch bases with y'all and see how your garden is growing. How is your garden growing? We have had crazy winds, downpours, trees snapping, stems breaking, things getting flattened out by the winds and the rains, and some people have had hail. And then some of you say you got nothing. Some of you are having like a drought and there's nothing going on. So I wanted to see how everything's going with y'all. The end of August, beginning of, or the end of, oh, that's cool, there's a garden. Sorry, got distracted. The end of July, beginning of August, and basically the whole month of August. August gardens are usually throwing a fit. Even if you are growing only flowers and shrubs and trees, your August garden usually gets spent, like the blooms die off and go to seed, and the weeds start taking over. And then especially with rains that we've gotten, sometimes it might feel like the weeds are out of control. If you're growing vegetables, the plants should be coming up well by now. Many people say their peppers are taking a long time to grow. They're short. My peppers are pretty short, but they are they are sending off flowers, and they are having fruit on them. We call them fruit, even though it's a vegetable. We know it's a vegetable, but they are having a lot of peppers on them, and they're very large peppers on small plants, so it looks kind of funny. But I am getting peppers. The in-ground peppers seem to be doing better right now than the raised kitchen garden bed peppers, but I put those in earlier too, so I can't compare the two accurately. I think also the in-ground peppers are getting less water than the raised kitchen garden bed peppers, so I don't think they like a lot of water. And I know tomatoes, some people say water them all the time, but it's been I never water my tomatoes. And especially this year, I haven't needed to do much watering at all for things because of the rain that we've had so much. I have like a rain gauge. Do you have a rain gauge? Are you measuring how much water comes down? We have one of those round, it's about this big around, and it's really tall. It's got a red top and bottom, and it's got a little floaty thing in it, the rain gauge. And it's got markings on it, but I can't figure out what the markings are supposed to mean. I can't figure out, because there's a large space between like nothing to 1, and then there's like a halfway mark 1, and then there's a 2, and I'm like, really, if it's all the way up to here, is that really 1 inch of water? I don't know about that. Do you have a rain gauge that you like a lot? Because that would be nice to know about. Some people use the can method. You can use a tuna fish can, or a cat food can, or a wet dog food can, empty, and you just leave it in the garden. Because the cans are usually about 2 inches tall, but at least you can kind of get an estimate when rain falls, about how much rain has fallen into the cans, and then you know whether you need to supplement the things growing or not. That's one thing. So, are you getting a lot of rain or a little rain? Are you getting a lot of winds and hail or none of it? How is your area doing? How is your mulch doing? Did you like what you picked for mulch this year? Have you not mulched yet? What are you doing about your weeds? What are you doing about your bugs? And oh boy, the bugs. There's a lot of bugs, a lot of different bugs. I feel like I'm going to be like Forrest Gump. There's a squash bug, an aphid, a cucumber beetle, grasshoppers, slugs, Japanese beetles. I'm trying to think what other bugs. Some people complain about the ants. There maybe hornets are making nests, or those yellow jackets are bugging you because it's the summertime. What kind of bugs are you dealing with? When I see spider webs, I'm glad. I'm actually glad, even though I have a lot of things that need to be pollinated, so the pollinators come by and they have a chance of getting caught in the webs. But I'm still glad to see spider webs because they're going to catch the other things that need to be caught. There's also traveling spiders. I know people get scared with spiders, but they're actually traveling spiders that will go out and kill the bugs in your gardens for you. And I'm all about letting nature take care of its own. Oh, let's see. Are you having the tobacco hornworm or the tomato hornworm? Are you having the stink bugs? That's supposed to be like the Forrest Gump way of saying things. Hornworms. You might get them on your peppers or on your tomatoes for sure. They'll go on your tomatoes, and you may get them on your peppers. I had them on tomatoes and peppers last year in the raised kitchen garden bed. And do you know what they look like? Do you know when you should kill them and when you should leave them alone? Do you have any of those? And how do you deal with them? And how are you dealing with your, are you seeing Japanese beetles? Those are the shiny metal, roundish kind of bugs. And they like to eat basically anything green. They're kind of like grasshoppers that way, because they just devour anything. And usually somehow they know they're going to go to your prized plant first, whatever that prized plant might be. Maybe it's a gorgeous magnolia tree or a lovely dahlia, or whatever you got growing that's green. They like to eat it. They're just trying to help, So how are you dealing with those? How are you dealing with caterpillars that you don't want, like the cabbage moth? Do you have any foolproof ways to do it? Do you have any chemical-free ways to do it? Do you have chemical-free ways to deal with any of these pests? You want to share them? I'd be glad to hear about them. So far, I only found one giant hornworm, and it was on Josh's Arches tomatoes. I did not go back yet with the flashlight in the dark, either dawn or dusk in the dark, with a blacklight flashlight. When you shine them on the tomatoes or your peppers, the hornworm glows a neon green. And you can take those off wearing gloves. I've used sandwich bags before. They feel like a pencil eraser if you touch them. They will not hurt you. They do not bite. They do not sting. They usually at night, they're more toward the top of the plants. If you're not sure if you have them, you would look to see if there's any branches that don't have leaves, that are like disappeared of leaves. And then if you see those branches, look kind of underneath the branches at the other leaves and see if you see little black poops. They call that frass. The sad irony about those hornworms is that they make a beautiful moth called a hawk moth, or it might be a sphinx moth. Anyway, this moth comes out at night. It's got a super long tongue, and it pollinates the squash and the melons and things like that at night. They're all up in my Gugusa and what else? The Gugusa and I forgot. White flower. White flower's a Gugusa. Oh, in the birdhouse gourds. And they would hover. It was so cool. It's like a hummingbird. And they stick their long tongue in there. And this is in the evening. And so it was really hard for me. I couldn't capture any on film because I wanted to show you guys this. But so that's the irony. The sad irony is that they will eat all of your tomatoes and all of your peppers. Anything in the nightshade family. But they also will turn into this beautiful moth that helps pollinate things at night. So if you're not growing that produce and you see the sphinx moth or the hawk moth, that's usually where it's going to come from. It's the hornworm. Japanese beetles. They eating your roses. They eating your peonies. If you've got Joe-Pye weed, either the dwarf kind or the really tall kind that's like a sculpture. They are butterfly and pollinator magnets. Pollinators love Joe-Pye weed, and it's a really cool looking plant. It's really unobtrusive. It doesn't make a big deal. It doesn't need a lot of fuss and muss. And it's a native plant. And here's the sad irony for native plants. The sad irony about native plants is that because they're native, they like the soil, they like the temperature, they like everything all about, where you're growing them. But they also can spread easily because they like it so much, the native plants. The others, this part's the sad irony really about the native plants, is that because they're native, the insects know them very well, and so they come to them all the time for food and nectar and shelter and things like that. And what happens with native plants often is they will get holes in the leaves. And so if you're standing up by your Joe-Pye weed, either it's the dwarf or the other kind, the tall kind, you're standing up next to your Joe-Pye weed, you're going to see all these holes in the leaves from the native plants. And that's normal, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately, unfortunately. That means it's working. Native plants get native bugs, and that's good. Oh, this is weird. I should just pull up in her driveway. I'm at my friend's house, and I got something to drop off. So I'm just going to talk in the driveway for a minute. Now, what you can do is the 10-step approach. And this, I heard this from Doug Tallamy at a Master Gardener conference a couple years ago. He had some great seminars. If you get a chance to listen to him, Doug Tallamy, Tallamy, he's great. But he recommends the 10-step approach, and that is where you. Oh, I gotta finish. I'll come back. Oh yay! I got all my errands done. Ooh, that feels good. I've been trying to buy clothes online that I like, that's on sale, especially all the summer clothes are on sale right now, and I'm like, woohoo! So, but then if it doesn't fit well, too big, too small, don't like it, then I gotta send it back. So I've had a large stack of return items that I have not addressed. They've been bugging me. So those are all set. I went to Kohl's for Amazon, and then I went to Staples for happy returns, I guess. Which turns out they could have taken my Amazon return. I didn't know that. So I know now I can go to Staples for both. And then I went to a UPS drop-off area, which it looks like Staples was a UPS drop-off area too. So if you have to keep returning stuff, then consider just going to one place that's got all the stations that you need, because it'll save you a little bit of time. I don't mind driving, but it is a gorgeous day. I'd rather be outside in the garden, but that's okay. And then I had some pants. They're like t-shirt material, and they have pockets. I like pockets. Very comfortable, lightweight, but they're still they're still thick enough because it's a t-shirt material and they go the whole length of my leg that it keeps my legs warm. But I'm short. I'm only 5'4", and my legs feel like they're shorter than that. I'm 5'4", and so they would send me like big sizes, but the legs were so long all the time that like I sent them back because the legs were too long, and they sent me the exact same. They replaced them with the exact same sets of pants, and I'm like, that's not going to work for me. So I'm giving them to my tall friend, who could probably use them a lot better than me. And there we go. So I was talking about native plants. Native plants. The good thing is they're acclimated to our condition. They survive our winters. They go through our summers. They like the rainfall we have or don't have. And they grow really well in our area. That's what native plants are. So if you move to Virginia, you want to see what the native plants are for Virginia. You move to Florida, likewise. Anywhere you move, you're going to find out what are the native plants, the native species to that particular area. And those are the plants you're going to have the most success with. But one thing is, because they're so happy, they usually grow fast. And they can be weedy. Not invasive, but it could feel like they're invasive because they grow so well. I mean, you can always dig them up and move them where you like them to be and give them the space that they need. So that's one thing with native plants, is they grow very, very well and probably take up more area than what you're expecting. The second thing is that because they're natives, all of the insect life is acclimated to those plants. And this is what they lay their eggs on. This is what they feed on. This is what they take shelter in. This is what they use to pollinate, like to get pollination from there, or to get pollen, not to get pollination, but to get the pollen. Actually, what they do, and here's the thing, I'm going to do a different one on that one. So the native plants, the insects love the native plants, and the problem is going to be that you may have holes in your leaves. And I was talking specifically about Joe-Pye weed, which really attracts the pollinators. Either the dwarf Joe-Pye weed or the really tall Joe-Pye weed, and it kind of makes like a vase shape. So it's a good structure plant to give you height in the back or middle of a bed, to give you kind of a little bit of drama, but it's not a drama plant at all. It's not like a rose. It doesn't need a lot of fuss and care. But it does get holes in the leaves from the native insects. And I was going to tell you about the 10-step process I learned from Doug Tallamy. And again, if you have the chance to listen to him or go to any seminars or read any of his books, he's amazing. He's very, very down to earth, and he knows a lot of stuff. Doug Tallamy, I think it's Tallamy. You can also follow him on Instagram. I don't know if he's on Facebook or not, and he might be on Twitter as well. I'm not sure, but I have seen him on Instagram for sure. He is the one that talks about how many caterpillars a bird needs to feed their baby, which is like thousands. So if you plant native plants, there's plenty of caterpillars to feed the baby birds, to keep the birds coming back and keep thriving, keep that bird population thriving. But if you plant non-natives, like if you found a really cool plant that originates from like Japan or China or Europe or something like that, and you're like, I really love this flower, I want to plant it here, it's going to have hardly any bugs, which to some people is a good thing. I mean, less bugs, you think, is a good thing. But when it comes to keeping nature in balance, trying to balance out nature and help nature thrive, no bugs is bad. Because no caterpillars means they can't feed their babies. They have to travel farther out or to different yards to find what they need to feed their babies. Now, when they are feeding all their babies, they're removing all of those caterpillars from the plants for you. So it's like a natural insect control where you don't have to spray anything, and you won't get holes in your leaves necessarily. And if you're growing vegetables and fruit, like orchards or whatever, even your home garden, your backyard garden, and you don't want a lot of the bad bugs like the dumb cabbage moth, if you plant flowers and shrubs and things like that that bring the birds to that area, the wild birds, they're going to do the bug control for you. And again, your life's going to be a little bit easier because you won't have to be managing those pests. And especially you won't have to manage the pests with chemicals. And when I say chemicals, I mean even I lump, and it's okay if you don't like this, but I lump neem in there along with BT, anything that you're bringing from the outside and you're applying to your garden to prevent something, discourage something, kill something that isn't like an insect or an animal. That, to me, that's chemical. To me, that's like man interfering. Now, some things can happen that are really good, like I have taught this year about the hoverfly. Those are those little tiny, teeny tiny sweat bees you see when you're trying to camp or hike or whatever. Maybe they're like just looking at you and you're like, what is going on? They just hover in front of your face and then they zoom off. Hoverflies, or sweat bees they call them. Well, they are pollinators too, but they like flat flowers like a chamomile or an open zinnia. Anything that they can put their little tongue in to get the nectar is what they like. Well, the cool thing about hoverflies is they lay eggs, and when the eggs hatch, those nymphs eat aphids. So if you have an aphid issue, you might put in plants that would be attractive to the hoverflies, and then they can do the managing of the aphid population for you. They say that one nymph can eat up to like 200 to 300 aphids in a week, which sounds like a lot to me. You might have an aphid issue and look around and you might see hoverflies in the vicinity. Well, that's good. I wouldn't bother spraying necessarily, because if you've got the hoverflies as well, then they're laying eggs nearby and their babies are going to eat happily for you. You just have to have a little bit of patience. In the meantime, you could spray aphids off with the hose, a hard hose. If there's a lot of branches that have aphids, maybe you clip those branches off and set them outside of the garden, so they're not going to spread into your other plants that you really like. And then, like I talked earlier in that first session about the tomato hornworm on your tomatoes or peppers. You know, and they might eat eggplant too. I hadn't even checked my eggplant when I grew it. That's another nightshade plant. But when you go, it was fun. I got my hair did, got it refreshed, and my stylist was excited to tell me all about her new raised bed garden where she's growing tomatoes. And she told me about the hornworms that she found. And she's like, I only knew about them because you told me about them. I was like, that's great. I'm so glad. And she handled them. She did not have the heart to kill them or squish them or cut them in half. But she did cut the branches off and put them in a baggie and put them in the freezer. She was trying to be a little bit less messy, a little bit more kind, and freeze them and then throw them away. And she found one, she went back, and then she found like 3 more, and she said she's pretty sure they're gone now. I told her about the black light and check in there, but she can do that. But then, and I was just so proud of her. I was like, that is so awesome. You know, and she did a lot of this work herself. I had just happened to be talking about stuff, and she remembered it. But the advanced part is, if you see one of those hornworms and it has those little white eggs, they look like white rice on them, leave them there. Because nature is doing the work for you. That means that a certain wasp is coming and laying eggs on, or like under the skin of these hornworms. And when those eggs hatch, they eat the insides of the hornworm, and the hornworm dies naturally. So you've got one hornworm, and you might have up to 25 or 30 eggs on the hornworm from this wasp, which means you have the wasps in your garden, which is good, excuse me, and it means that you're now going to have 25 to 30 more of those wasps in your garden, and they're going to manage those hornworms for you. And to get the harmony in your garden like that, you really have got to manage it as naturally as possible. You really have to do that if you want the harmony in your garden. So if possible, don't plant just vegetables and fruit. Plant flowers in there too. Plant herbs in there too. Plant things in there that are going to attract the bugs, the beneficial bugs. Plant things in there that are going to detract the bugs that might want to harm your stuff. Hey, I even saw on a, what did I see? Oh, it was an Instagram reel. I'm addicted to those, sorry. Somebody made fake cabbage moths on a stick, and they kind of flop around like cabbage moths. You put like 5 or 6 of those in an area that you're trying to protect, and apparently they will attack the cabbage moths. They're flying around. The real ones they're flying around will attack the imitation ones because they're very territorial. So actually, maybe you don't put it where you want to protect it. You put it away from where you want to protect it. But yeah, the fake cabbage moths will try to go to battle, or the real cabbage moths will try to go to battle with the fake cabbage moths. And I was like, that is ingenious. I'm thinking about maybe I would try that out. I don't know. There's got to be a way. So tell me how you're doing in your garden. How are things growing the way you want them to? Are you dealing with the bugs and the pests? Which ones? Would you like me to do any kind of series on certain bugs or certain conditions? More so than others? Just let me know and I'll see what I can do. I also offer private coaching, which is specific to your particular garden, whether it's perennials, annuals, mixtures, whether it's an actual farm. Well, I can't do farming necessarily because I don't know about all the farm equipment and things like that, but like homesteads or a farmstead, or like shrubs, trees, planting. If you're a brand new person, you're like, I've never gardened and I want to, Tam, teach me. I can do that for you too. So I am always available for coaching. 3 sessions are available for $150, and they would be an hour long. You give me a bunch of questions beforehand. I address those with information. I come to you with information. We talk about that for the first hour, and then as things come up, we can talk about those in the different sessions. So that's available. I also do garden consultations for $150. That's 1 hour, and I come out and I look at all of your garden. I look at the particular parts that you tell me about, and then I go and I look around all your garden. I take lots and lots of pictures, and I present that in a report with words. And I talk to you as I'm going around the yard, and I'm telling you these things verbally so you can hear it, but then I'm typing it all out so that you see it on paper. And then I give you suggestions about how you can improve these trees or this shrub, or how to prune this, or what to do with that in the most natural way possible. Maybe you want to invite butterflies in. I give you information about that. Or you want to invite hummingbirds to your yard. I give you information about that. Whatever it is that you're looking for that's like outdoor related are things that I can give you information about. And that's a consultation. From a consultation comes the report. And then if there was any work that you wanted me to do, I would do a quote. And then I will also have usually some optional items in the quote, like if you wanted spring bulbs planted in October, I could purchase the bulbs and plant them for you. That would be an option. If you're going to want a spring cleanup the next year, you know, I can quote that out for you as well. And then it's going to have all these different recommended steps for you if you'd like that. And then if I put plants in your yard, I'm also going to give you a plant friend list. So it will tell you specifically what is the plant, what is it a perennial or annual? Is it a cool season or a warm season? And it'll tell you the Latin name, the specific Latin name. And I'll tell you why it's important next. And then a link on how to care for that plant that you could look up online. And the sites I use usually when I do the information links are usually sites that don't have a whole lot of pop-ups and a lot of stuff going on. And it's going to have tried and true things for, care plans for plants and information about them. It's stuff that I would go to because I don't want to be bothered with. I don't want to look at a blog. It's like with the recipes now. They always have a blog about it came from so-and-so and it was good for this. And then they got that link that says jump to recipe. I'm like the jump to recipe kind of person. So the sites I provide for you in your friend plant list or plant friend list are going to be those kinds of sites. Get to the meat of it. Stop pussyfooting around. I don't have all day for this. Blah, blah, blah. So I give the Latin names so that if there are any pests that you see with your plant, you can take that Latin name and you can Google it specifically. Like you can put the Latin name in and then say pests after it. Or you can put the Latin name in and say diseases. Or put the Latin name in and press care and put in care. And you can get specific information about that specific plant that you have. Tam, what's the big deal? Well, okay, in my yard right now, in my front yard, I'm looking at a native bee balm, a light purple native bee balm. And I'm also looking at a bright red bee balm, which is not a native, it's a hybrid. They're going to have slightly different Latin names. I mean, the names may be the same, but the variety might be a little bit different. So one variety might like things a certain way while the others likes it a little different way. And if you try to treat them all the same, you're not going to have as much success. Another example would be like tomatoes. Determinate tomatoes, they grow to a certain size, that's it. And you barely prune them unless it's diseased or dead branches. Indeterminate tomatoes are the ones that go way up, they go on the trellises, they go on vines, they go on strings, and you prune, and they actually do better that way. If you just tried to look up tomatoes and you applied tomato knowledge to indeterminate, that should be determinate, or vice versa, you're not going to have as much success. And so those are some of the reasons why I would give you the Latin names. I do not speak the Latin names, so if I go to the nursery, I'm usually going to tell them, hey, I'm looking for blankety blank. I'm looking for lamb's ear. But I'm not going to tell them stacko whatever it is, because a lot of times I can't remember those names. But I can say it's this particular plant with this particular color and this type of flower. An example would be asters. I like to plant the native asters, and the native asters that I plant in my yard, they get like 3 to 4, I'm looking at a couple right now, 3 to 4 foot wide, like in diameter, all the way around, 3 to 4 foot, and they get about 2 feet tall, and they are covered in the purple flowers. Oh, there's a monarch flying in front of my car. Just as I thought. Just as I was going to talk about monarchs. In the fall, the monarchs are traveling from the north down to the south. They still need nectar sources. So when they call them pollinators, that's because when they go to get the nectar, some of the pollen gets stuck on their feet. They go to the next flower to get the nectar, and the pollen from the one flower goes to the other flower. That's what they call pollinators. Okay? But they're getting nectar. So the monarchs need the nectar on their travels all the way from way up in Canada all the way down to Mexico. This generation goes from Canada at the end of summer all the way down to Mexico. And they need flowers that are still available to them. So the goldenrod is really good to have. That's yellow, and it blooms in the late summer and all the way into fall, like way deep into fall, like October. And so is the native goldenrod, or the native aster. Now they do have asters that are like Stokes asters, and then there's another kind. They're not considered the native asters, and they don't get really large, which is good if you've got a small garden and you don't want a plant to take over. But when I'm planting in my yard, I'm planting for expansive amounts of food for the migrating whatevers it might be. In this case, I was talking about monarchs. It could be birds, the migrating birds, the songbirds. God, I love it in the spring when the songbirds come up. They're going to need berries for the adults, and they're going to need the caterpillars for the offspring. So I make sure that my yard has berries available, tons of berries. I also make sure that my yard has tons of plants that the caterpillars will be on, so the birds will have something to eat. So that's what I do. You can get coaching sessions, $150 for 3 hour. You could get a consultation for $150, also 1 hour, and then I do all that footwork for you. And then if you want any gardens installed, you want things changed around, you want some designs, you want to do it yourselves. I even make designs for like build plans for boxes, raised beds. You could do it yourself if you want. Otherwise, I can make the boxes for you. So don't be afraid to reach out and see if there's something I can help you with. I do have a website with it's got a button on it that says let's chat, or it says consultation. I can't remember now. It's been a little while since I've been on there, but that will take you to a form where you put your information, you put a little bit about your question, you click off some boxes, and you send it to me, and then I get it within like 24 hours. And I usually will respond within 24 hours, sometimes less, depends on what's going on. So don't be afraid to use my services. If you wanted to learn more about raising butterflies, about planting gardens, about garden design, about easier ways of weeding or keeping the weeds down or things like that, I'm available for seminars as a guest speaker. I'm available if you've got a group of friends and you want to come to my yard and I can explain things to you. I'm available for classes. I'm available for you can learn how to seed save. You can learn how to can, how to dehydrate and preserve. Anything that I've learned along the way. Oh, there's a hummingbird. I'm seeing a hummingbird at my hybrid, not hybrid. What do they call that when it's not a native? I guess a hybrid coneflower. That is the Jacob Klein bee balm. It's bright red, and these are the petals coming out, the red petals. The hummingbirds actually go from one. They're like OCD. They go 1, and then they go 2, and then they go 3. They literally will go all the way around the plants or all the way around the flower to get the nectar that they're looking for, which is super cool. It's fun to watch. If you wanted to design an orchard, if you need advice about how to lay out your homestead, chickens. I raise chickens. If you want to learn, I could teach you from conception all the way to hatching and then to rearing and raising and how to keep the predators away and all that kind of good stuff too. So feel free to reach out to me if you like. But otherwise, tell me about your garden. Is it a huge garden? Is it a little garden? Is it in between garden? Is it manageable? Not manageable? You need some help with it? You need just a little bit of advice? You just need to vent about it? Because we're getting to that time of year. I just keep watching the hummingbird, sorry. We're getting to that time of year where our August gardens are coming. With this rain is going to make it, and the heat is going to make our August gardens start going crazy. And like, mosquitoes. Oh man, I've been trying to go out. I like to go out when it's cool. So that's going to be either before sunset or early morning, like right after sunrise. And those mosquitoes, I feel like I'm like one big mosquito bite. I don't know about you, but those mosquitoes are really getting to me. So if you have a good way to manage mosquitoes as you're walking around the garden, let me know. We do have bats. The bats come out at sunset and they fly so close to us as we're walking around the yard that you can see, like, in their wings, you can see like the pinky flesh of their wings. Like you can almost see through it, like if it's a moonlit night, you can kind of see. Or if they're come by the motion light we've got, you can kind of see through their wings. They get so close. So we get the bats at night, and then we do get barn swallows that seem to love, they're eating some kind of bugs in our yard, which I'm very appreciative of. that's good, because I don't want to have to deal with all the bugs. But yeah, the August garden gets to be real tough, because this is when the weeds are crazy, but also your plants are really growing well and full. If your pathways were too small, you can see now, because this plant life is all over the top of it. If you can't get your wheelbarrow through to harvest stuff, you know your paths were too small. Watering might be an issue if you're not getting any rain for August, but definitely weed management, pest management, heat. Get out there in the heat and then start getting bit by bugs, and then you're seeing all these other bugs and you're like, I know I should manage these, but. And there's a lot going on in August. Plus, if you've got a family, you're starting to rev up for the school year again, and you have to get back in that swing of things. So August can be real challenging. And I know it's July right now, but it's like the end of July, guys. At the end of July. So anyway, if I can help in any way, let me know. Reach out to me. Send an email, send a text, send a message, send smoke signals. But I am here to help you out. And I don't care if you've been gardening 60 years or you've never gardened. It doesn't matter to me what your experience level is. I refuse to talk down to you. I hope that information that I give is as simple and straightforward as possible so you can understand it. And it's never meant in any kind of condescending anything. I am not about magic potions or banana peels. I'm not about putting perlite in. I'm not about a lot of complicated things. I like to try to keep the gardening as simple as possible. Now, my gardens are they're not home beautiful. There's not a lot of spacing in between the shrubs and things like that, and trees and plants. But I'm okay with that. You might not be. Maybe you're someone who wants to do a lot of weeding and things, and that's okay too. But I would rather plant them real close together so that they help each other grow. They keep their roots cool. They capture that water and give it to each other by slowing it down when it's coming down. They protect each other from the wind, from wind damage and things like that. And they provide habitats for all the critters, the wild critters that I want to see in the garden. So anyway, Tammy Lowe, Lazy Northern Gardener. Apparently, I don't talk a lot, but there are some topics that you can get me going on. And 1 is gardening, 2 is chickens, 3 is like raising butterflies and the wildlife fish things. Yeah, otherwise, small talk, I'm not as good at small talk. I'd rather listen to people so much than talk. But if you want to hear about gardens from me, you can. I will tell you all you want to know, all that I know, which is not really that much. It's still a drop in the bucket. I've been gardening, excuse me, my whole life. And we've just been moved out to the homestead since 2019, middle of 2019. So it's only been about 4 years now that we've been here. But it was all grass. It was basically pasture of grass. That was it. Which my husband really loved because he likes to cut the grass with the tractor, the mower. But I have been adding trees and shrubs and trees and shrubs and trees and shrubs and fruit trees and building an orchard and native shrubs, and I'm kind of erasing the grass that we have. It's not for everybody. Some people look at it as weedy, and some people think it's fine, but for me, it's fine. I've lived in the suburbs before, and in my backyard was like full on garden, and anyway, I'm going on and on. Happy Saturday, guys. I hope you have a great day. And I think what I'll do is I'll make these 2 sessions as a podcast, a single podcast on YouTube, and then you can just listen to it in the car or whatever, or as you're doing your chores, or as you're walking your kids to school, or however you want to do it. So look for me on YouTube, The Lazy Northern Gardener, on Instagram, The Lazy Northern Gardener, on Facebook, The Lazy Northern Gardener. I have a Twitter as well, Twitter account, if you wanted to follow along with that. And I think I have a Pinterest. I think it's enough social media. I don't get to all of them, but I do get to some. And if there's certain things you want to see more of, certain things you want to see less of, like maybe like Tam, enough of the swallowtails. That's enough. No more caterpillars, no more butterflies. Let me know. And again, reach out to me if you've got gardening, homesteading, chicken questions, nature questions. I'll see how I can help you out. All right, love y'all. Bye.